My name is Solange Leon Iriarte. I'm from Chile, but actually I'm from a lot of places. I was born in Scotland, actually. I was born in Glasgow, but I'm half French and Basque as well, from my mother's side. My parents moved to Glasgow from Argentina, where they moved to first after the coup. I think they moved out of Chile in 73. They stayed in Argentina till 75, and they moved to Scotland then in 1975. And then my mum stayed there for a couple of years, I think, only, and then we went back to Santiago de Chile, which is where I grew up. My older sister was born in Argentina, I was born in Glasgow, and my little sister was born in Chile, which is why my mother says she's the mother of the United Nations, all sponsored by dictatorship. When I went back to Chile, I was 2 years old, and we moved to this street in the middle of town called Lloyd Wright, which is always stayed in my mind, which is interesting because obviously of my architectural background, but there were always really big silver, beautiful trees, silver birch trees in the street, and that memory always stayed with me, which is why I've started working with that at a later age. It's a memory. It's the first memory I have. We lived in a very bohemian area in the mountains, in the suburbs of Santiago, very high up. So I had a very feral childhood. I didn't really wear any clothes till I was 7, which was a bit problematic for the neighbors. Once we started growing up, we had to put actual clothes on. But we lived in the mountains, so the childhood was mostly jumping over the fence and stealing the neighbors' horses, heading off into the mountains for the day, coming back at night time, completely covered in mud, disgusting, cats, dogs, sunshine, art. You never really realize how amazing the childhood we had was until you're older, really, and especially when you live in an urban area like we do here. But I had a very feral, kind of back of the horse type childhood. We never had dolls. We had animals and sticks and stones and sisters to play with, and the neighbors, really. It was great. I sometimes tell myself that I'm turning into my mother, which is a good thing, apart from the fact that she's got a very strong temper. We're all kind of very diluted versions of my mother, myself and my 2 sisters. My mother is an incredibly strong, very educated woman who had to bring up 3 daughters on her own during dictatorship in a country that was obviously very difficult. So I don't know how she did it, but she did an amazing job with all of us. Really, I have infinite respect for her. But I think it's likely that it's her that inspired my work, and she drew with me always. So I used to love being ill, not because I was ill, but because that meant that I was actually allowed to use her coloring pencils in bed. So it's one of those really precious memories of how it was that I got into drawing. She used to lock herself in her studio and play really loud, very passionate, intense French music. We knew that if the French music was playing in the studio, we were not to interrupt, and if we did, we were in really big trouble. So, but yeah, she was amazing, really. She gave us the best education that we could in a French school, which is why it's my second language and a very important part of my culture. And she really taught us the important things to really enjoy life, and she gave us really incredible principles. She's a very thoughtful, very passionate, very powerful woman. Quite scary at times, really very scary, in fact. When she's angry, run. Everyone just scattered from the house if she was cross with anyone. Cats, dogs, children, everyone disappeared. We used to climb up a tree and pray that she wouldn't find us until she calmed down. But she's incredibly supportive. I think she's not only an inspiring woman, but she's also an incredibly talented artist. I often think that I wish I had the confidence of her brushstrokes, because you can really see the passion coming through her work. A lot of very political imagery and very South American characters, street characters. She's a figurative artist. She doesn't really do abstract. And so there's this running conversation with my mother with regards to the art, which is something that we obviously talk about and have in common. I always wanted to be an artist. Perhaps I also wanted to be a philosopher. Those were the two things that I really wanted to do. But I wanted to be a sculptor initially. I like the material resistance and the communication. But I wasn't allowed to study art, because art is a very unsteady and challenging profession to have. So my mother didn't want me to go through the hardships that she went through bringing up 3 kids as an artist. It's unsteady. So she said, no, you're not allowed to study art. And I cried, but I had to think again. And so between sculpture and art, I decided that I would study architecture, which in a way encompasses the idea of sculpture, but in a spatial capacity. And it's one of those careers that are professional. So in South America, of course, you have these very traditional ideas of the things that one should study, coming from a family like the one I do. You can be a doctor, you can be an architect, you can be an engineer, but no, you can't be an artist, even though my mother was the black sheep that became one in my family. But after I had my son, I worked in practice in architecture for a long time, but I was only drawing to try to explore shape and form and space and design, which is a different kind of drawing and a different kind of conversation, because it has a ultimate purpose to it, really. And then I stopped drawing for pleasure, and I didn't draw for, I think, about 10 years. I stopped drawing. And everyone then started saying, oh my God, you have to draw, you're really good at drawing, la la la, you have to, you have to, you have to. And the more people tell you that you have to do something, me being the rebellious me that I am, the less I wanted to do it. And I was very busy, you know, growing children and keeping a household and cooking and being a different kind of creative, really. When did I change that? When I did go back to drawing was 11 years ago, which is not a very long time, really. And what happened was, I have always kept sketchbooks. It's part of the architect's practice. I draw and I write and I think, and you keep a record of what you're looking at through observation with just crappy Sharpies or ink pens or whatever. So they've always been a really big part of my life. I have whole shelves filled with them here. And a very good friend of mine and a very well-established artist called Henrik Simonsen kept looking at my drawings on my sketchbooks. And he had a gallery at the time, and he's, you know, a proper big international artist. And he looked at me and said, are you going to stop drawing in little bits of shitty paper one day and try to do something with your work? You know, your work is good. You should try to sell it. How about we make a bet? So he made a bet with me that if I drew it properly in paper, put it in an open house back in the day, and he said, if you sell it, you'll take me out for dinner. But if you don't, then I'll take you out for dinner. That's how this started. And of course, that was my first sale, a drawing that I did during my architecture school of New Haven Harbour, of the beach out there. Really beautiful. I'm never going to forget that drawing, the first drawing I sold. And yeah, from then on, I just never stopped, really. A bet. I sold it for £250.
Nice. Amazing.
I do remember how much the drawing was. And it was in a friend's open house in Brunswick Place.
Hello trees, hello forest, hello wind for the leaves, hello birds, hello lynx, hello bears and wolves, hello black stork. Do you have something to say?
Music is very important, so I guess music has definitely had a big part to play. But I don't think my work is particularly tied to a specific country. I think, in fact, the work that I do hopefully transcends borders and is not tied to a specific culture. Another very good friend of mine told me once that one makes our best work when you're sad. Which is an interesting question because, of course, one works when you go through all kinds of emotions, when you're happy, when you're distressed, when you're tired, when you're going through grief, your work changes and it tends to be much more expressive. And I just find it at the time, and it tends to have a different kind of energy. But personally, I find it difficult to connect with a creative space when I'm sad, personally speaking. So I tend to write a lot more when I'm going through that tinted grief-like emotion. I tend to write and then I work in one big explosion when I'm going through grief. My work when I'm happier is much better because then I think, at least for myself, I can more easily open the gates and find inspiration in everything and anything. And so my work is a little bit of a chameleon. I work in a lot of different subjects, a lot of different media. I do abstract work, I do figurative work, I do portraits, I do landscapes, I draw animals. I mean, really anything that's part of my life at the time that kind of takes over my interest, really. I'm happy to explore it. And the difficulty with that is that my work, although it's very much my own, and people look at it and think, wow, it is very you, but this is different. Again, it's difficult for the art galleries to run with that because they want you to have a very clear image that's recognizable. They want to have the one Solange Leon Iriarte image attached to your person, almost a signature piece. And I find it difficult to resist this temptation to explore, to learn, to play. Sometimes I kind of get out of bed on my way to the kitchen to put the coffee on in the morning, start working. I just stop halfway, look at a drawing, and I haven't even gone to the toilet, and I'm already thinking, like, picking up the charcoal, and I have to stop myself and go, no, actually, how about you get dressed or wake up even first? So that's something that's interesting about working and living in the same space. It's inescapable, for better or for worse. What advice would I give to emerging artists? Can I give any advice? Ooh. I guess I could think about that with my niece. I have taught art for many years to both children and adults. And I guess have fun is one of them. You have to find joy in the work that you're doing, even if it comes with pain. And you need discipline as well. And you need to be able to just not know what you're doing and get used to that feeling of really not having a clue what it is that you're supposed to do with this. There's a blank page. So it's about losing the fear of making mistakes, really. Make a lot of mistakes and make good mistakes, really. That's, I think, the best advice I could give you. And also draw, because there's nothing more magic than the joy of creating entire universes with something as humble as paper and a little pencil. That's all you need. I often have ideas somehow maturing inside me for quite a long time before they come out. They have to almost spill out of me. I have to be like, till here it's like, okay, I'm gonna draw you, okay, I'm gonna paint you. But I keep looking at the things or thinking about them for days. And the first thing that will generally happen is I will do a small study of the piece that I want to actually create. And I will work from the study to the larger piece. I work with a charity called Forest Without Frontiers. I sit in the advisory board and I am one of their artist ambassadors. So there's a beauty in the circularity of the work that I do with them, in that I am drawing trees with charcoal and paper, which are in itself trees. And we're also planting a lot of trees in the Carpathian forest and also in Sussex in recent times. And it's really beautiful work, and I've created a series of prints to support them. But I would love to take that work further, and I would love to be able to fill an entire gallery or workspace with just large-scale charcoal and hopefully 22 carats gold leaf pieces of work. So in my mind, I would like to be able to take the work that I do with this charity and with the treescapes, which are mostly imaginary, further in that way. That's the next thing that is brewing here, though you probably can't see it yet. I promise it's there. You can find my work in Jagged Art Gallery in Marylebone in London and Cameron Contemporary Gallery in Hove. And I have a website, which is www.solangeleon.com, or you can come and have a cup of tea or coffee, more likely, in my studio in Kemptown.